here. So good afternoon. On behalf of everyone here at Brandeis Graduate Professional Studies, we want to welcome you to our special event webinar, Engineering Yourself in the Software World, One Step at a Time. So before we begin, just want to go over a few tips for utilizing our communications platform. So currently you are in listen-only mode. You can raise your hand or send an emoticon using the icon at the top left of your screen. The picture on the slide shows you an example. However, I would like to ask that everyone just send a brief note through the chat box just to confirm that you can hear and see me. Excellent. Excellent, great. So it looks like everyone can see and hear me. So as we go along, feel free to type any questions that you have into the chat box, and we'll try to call them out as we go along here. We just want this session to be as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions, don't hold back. So a little bit about our presenter this afternoon. Let's hear from Vasanth Krishnamoorthy. So Vasanth, I'm going to ask you to join me and turn on your webcam.
Hi guys.
Welcome for being here this afternoon. So Vasanth, you're going to actually talk a little bit more about your experience here in the first part of your presentation, but we just wanted to get just a brief feel for what you're all about. So can you just tell us about your experience at WalmartLabs?
Sure. So hi guys, I'm Vasanth. I work as a senior front-end engineer at Walmart Labs. Over there, I basically write code mainly in JavaScript, HTML, CSS, a little bit of backend Node.js, and it's mainly used for building their e-commerce websites and some of the platform code as well. Before this, I did my master's in computer science at Oregon State University, and before that, I was in India until my undergraduation. I was born and brought up in Chennai, India. So that's a bit of a background about me. Uh, I'm really excited to be talking to you guys today. I'm looking forward to sharing my knowledge and whatever I learned from being in the software industry for a little bit.
Well, we're very excited to have you today. So I'm actually going to turn off my webcam so I don't take away from the presentation, and I will officially hand things over to you. Thanks for being here this afternoon.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Sure. Cool. Uh, yeah, let's get started on the presentation. Uh, okay. So I just give you a quick introduction about myself and a little bit more about me. I love JavaScript. I love open source. I do CrossFit. I love chess, traveling, uh, and I really am excited about learning new things. Pretty much, whenever I meet people, I want to learn something from them. That's kind of uh, how I have been in a while, and it's helped me a lot in my industry as well. So I'm going to share a few things. Learning and sharing is one of the most important things. So I'm just going to share a few things, and that's that picture. It's just me goofing around. It's me at work. Basically, both of us are web developers. So that's what I meant to say over there. Only thing is like I don't like bugs, unlike this other little one over there. It's a spider. Okay, so let's get started on the presentation. And yeah, so this is basically a typical scene at work when things break. You can see a bunch of people over there, the on-site PM, the test team, the IT lead, the project manager, and that is the brave developer. It's usually us developers who are pretty much on the forefront when things break, and at the same time, it's a lot of responsibilities, but it's quite fun at the same time just being a software engineer. And let's look into like the growth stages of being a developer. It's more of a cycle. I call it a cycle because this pattern will pretty much repeat with anything new that you learn. So every time when you learn, you pass through different stages of being a developer. So let's look into more details about what all the different stages are. That might give you a sense of like where exactly you are with respect to whatever you're trying to learn right now. So the first stage is probably being a total noob. Just it's you have warm feelings for your early days in your careers, the period when you have absolutely no clue what you're doing. It's basically like a fish out of water. Each new line of code is a mystery, but it's still kind of somehow you try to put things together and get it working. So that's like an early stage, and everyone goes through it. So nothing to feel bad about it. The next stage is learning the code base. You take baby steps. You'll eventually learn enough to begin taking your first steps into the coding world. While phase one is overwhelming regarding how or where do I start in this period, phase two is one in which you slowly begin to build up your skill set. So it's quite essential a phase in your in the growth of being a developer. And the next stage is when you actually start to trip, when you are actually taking baby steps. You get frustrated at times. So frustration. So it's kind of like, imagine being lost in a cave and you're shining flashlight down each tunnel as you search your way out. With each step, you hope to see a glimmer of light, but unfortunately, the learning curve in our industry is a steep one. That speckle of light won't come for a long time. Find peace in the fact that every one of us felt the exact same way at some point or another in our career. Some people early on they might be really comfortable with what they're doing, but as I keep mentioning, constant learning is one of those things which is main driving force behind being successful in a software industry. So you will definitely come across times when you're really frustrated. Just accept the fact, and you're not alone. Stick with it, and long before long you will reach the aha phase, which is basically you have this aha moment. Uh, this is The aha moment is one of the greatest feelings in the world. That brief instance when you suddenly get it. Oh, now I see it. That's kind of how you feel when you're reading some concepts in programming or anything for that matter. And many of these things which I talk about today with respect to the software world might also be very much applicable to other things in other industries. I think learning, it's irrespective of which industry you are, it's very much essential. So I guess you can kind of find parallels in something which you're already doing in some other industry or in some other major which you're studying. So this is the phase, the aha moment phase is when all of the technologies and languages you have been learning slowly start to click. And the next phase is the copycat phase. So this phase is an important one. I will even go to the extent of saying that there is no better way of learning proper coding techniques than to spy on the code of your heroes, even to the point of reproducing them line by line. Don't feel bad about it. Every artistic career has a copycat phase. Of course, copying will only get you so far, but it's an excellent start just to understand maybe how libraries work, how some frameworks work, why did this line of code, what does this line of code do, just asking a lot more questions and trying to understand the thought process behind some really well written code. Um, this can be very useful because when you go into a company, it's most likely that you'll be working on someone else's code. It's not like you'll be starting a project from scratch. As a student, we have the liberty in most cases to like build projects from scratch by ourselves. So it's going to be a little bit different. So looking to others' codes can really help a lot in understanding. Uh, Mimic people who inspire you, and eventually you'll begin to develop your own style. So nothing wrong about it, and it's quite important. And when you cross this copycat phase, you actually feel a lot more confident because you kind of understand what people who inspire you do with code, and you start to apply it in your own code as well. So that there's a possibility that you might get overconfident as well. So that's basically the next phase. I just wanted to bring this up because at this point you're finally beginning to get into the groove. There's certainly vast room for improvement, but your confidence is quickly rising, perhaps too quickly. They say that in the first few years you still don't know enough to realize just how little you know. I know for a fact that when I first started working as a software developer, I pretty much PHP and some basic technologies, and I felt, oh, I think I have a handle of this. I think I understand everything. But pretty soon you get into this realization, you start to see more complex problems about how things will work in scale, which are not problems which you traditionally come across when you're students or when you're working on your side projects. But once you have to scale to millions of users and billions of users, how do you make things work? So that's when you start to realize just how little you know. So let's resist the urge to become too cocky at this stage. Don't knock down on people. We are all in this together. Just a different phase. And probably the next stage is like when you finally get a hang of coding. When coding is art. Though it takes hundreds of hours, one day you will look at your code and breeze through it with ease. Uh, your code is well abstracted, perfectly testable, scalable, and easy to read. At some point in your career, you might have prided yourself on your ability to write cryptic, confusing code uh, possibly leveraging every single quirk or hidden feature which the languages have. But this is not really a sign of a mature developer. It instills signals that you're not really thinking about how the future maintainer of this code will actually look into it. So code becomes art when its readability is important to you as much as its functionality. In this phase, you start to code for human beings rather than for machines. And finally, this is the last stage, which is basically being a seasoned developer or a rockstar ninja guru developer. So at this point, code becomes kind of like instinct to you. You have reached the next phase in your career. No longer do you think in terms of like languages or syntax or frameworks. Instead, you simply see problems and choose the current tool from your coding tool chest to provide the solution. Each new feature before even it's implemented, it's discussed with different members of the team. Whiteboards are prepared, stories are written, and tests are generated, all before writing even a single line of production code. So there's a lot of groundwork which goes. Even in fact, some of those seasoned Rockstar developers don't even write code. They think about problems and abstractions, and pretty much there are people who code for them in the sense that they still code. But what I'm saying is like there are things before even you start coding which is far more important. A wrong abstraction can go a long way to bite you in the back later on. So having the right abstractions and having the right tool sets is quite important. So you have become a mature at this point. You have become a mature, thoughtful developer who others really want to work with. So this is kind of like the different stages of being a programmer. So there are 8 stages. I started with stage 0 because in programming you always start with index 0. But anyways, so right now by this time you kind of might have a sense of which phase you fit in. So let's kind of see how you can get. How do you get there? So how do you get to the next phase? Or so the first thing probably is uh, before I start with this, I'm going to classify these as 7 key traits which are important to actually improve in your software skills as well as in the industry. So the first skill is, as I told you, or I've been talking about all this while, it is self-awareness. So know thyself, improve thyself, and complement thyself. This is something uh, which which is quite important, and it took me at least 1 or 2 years to actually really understand where I stand, because quite often you start to think of your accomplishments as a way to compare yourself with like how much you know about things, but your accomplishments are kind of, you need to take a side step and really need to understand like yourself better with respect to your colleagues or the industry. So to identify which growth stage you are as a developer, the first thing is probably test and know yourself better. How skilled are you for the task at hand? So that's probably the first step. And the second step would probably be watch yourself and your environment. Are you able to express yourself freely? So it's very important to be in the right environment for irrespective of what stage you are as a developers. The maybe rockstar developers fit in a lot more in a different team. Maybe novice engineers fit in better in another team. So it's important to know your environment and see if you can actually express freely. Do you have the creative freedom to try out new things and fail forward and learn from it? So be aware of your environment and people around you. How is the rest of the team like? What are their expectations for you? How do you think you can add value? So these are all some questions which help you to have a better self-awareness of yourself. So that certainly helps a lot in knowing where you stand. And in order to move forward to the next level, of course, we need to keep learning. So never stop learning. So learning, it's more of a process rather than a goal. That's something which I realized in the sense that initially when I was doing some of my first tasks, I would just learn something regarding whatever is needed for a specific task. The task is done and I move on. But you keep getting different tasks which are probably variations of this current task. And at the end of the day, in order to actually learn it properly, you need to understand the fundamentals, what goes on behind the scenes, which you might not get enough liberty during your work schedule, but still somehow that it's good to like take some time to understand what goes behind the scenes with any technology or anything which you use. So uh, if we see learning as something we have to do, then we like a task. We rush to get it done, so we can spend the rest of the time doing something more fun, something we want to. So the problem is that it's impossible to know everything about anything. So viewing learning as a race leads to burnout and disappointment. So instead, if you see it as a process, you'll appreciate the small victories and insights along the way. This will drive you to constantly move forward. It's kind of similar to exercise. If someone is already involved in exercise or maybe any sport which you play, workouts are hard, and then the pain ends as soon as your workout ends. But it's never gone. It's waiting for you the next time you work out. Except each time the pain just becomes part of your routine, and you're rewarded by better health, better physique, and are incentivized to keep going. So it's similar. It creates a positive feedback loop. Learning creates a positive feedback loop. You have a goal, you work hard, there is pain, there is reward, enjoyment, and then the next goal. Uh, so never stop learning. So that's one of the things which I learned over time, and it also helps to kind of take some time and figure out if whatever you're working on is something which you really like. Because in certain tasks, if I'm doing some tasks which I'm not fully invested on, or I don't believe in the company or anything for that matter, then it's going to be really hard to keep up with learning because you are not really fully invested. So as I told you, picking the right environment is also equally important. And if you see, I haven't really spoken about like, hey, this technology is the best for the industry. This is not, and this is not, because technologies keep changing, and I'm sure you can find statistics about which technology is the most important or which fetches the most job. Probably JavaScript, Java, C++. They're all top technologies, so they can get you to a job, but really succeeding in the industry. And these are all things which I'm learning. I'm still learning a lot of these. So I'm just happy that to have a lot of great people around me who've been able to show me these things or even explain it to me or even help me through understand all these things. So just wanted to share it with you guys. So the next thing is like one more thing is learning how to learn. That's also quite important. Uh, First step to learning anything is to understand, as I told you, the why. Understanding uh, how is this different from other solutions? How is this useful to me? Asking more and more questions and reading and understanding the core concepts. I personally felt like in some of the tasks which I was doing, I was basically understanding this syntax does this thing, blah, 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 and I was able to get the job done. But when I took some time off and really understand why this library came into being, what is the reason behind using this as a way or an abstraction for a specific problem. So asking a lot of whys can really get you going, and you will get stuck at some point when you are learning. So that's when there are a lot of people who can around have some people around you who can actually help you out, and or else with this internet in this current world, it's easy to find solutions. You can reach out any people across the globe, and they are always willing to help you. So mastery requires repetition, but build more things by applying what you learned and by learning how to learn. Some people might be a visual learner, some people just like to jump in and start working on it. So try to understand which works for you best, and slowly moving forward, you'll develop a better routine in terms of learning new things. So that's one more thing. And I said again the importance of picking the right environment. So just a couple of tweets which were really came across to me. So great code doesn't come from an environment of fear, pressure, worrying whether we belong. It comes from welcoming an interchange of ideas. So picking the right environment, again, as I told you, and surrounding yourself with people who challenge, push you, and motivate you. So that's again quite important. And the next thing is probably as you meet a lot of people in work or outside work, there's a lot of great things which you can learn from different people. So get inspired. So that's probably one important thing. Learn from others, hang out with programmers, some ways by which you can uh, actually meet people to attend conferences. I still remember the first time when I went to a conference after I joined my job was in a Chrome Developer Summit. It was in Google's office, and I got to meet a lot of developers whose blogs I read to learn programming when I was a kid in India. So it was just such an inspiring moment to just meet them in person, talk to them about programming, and just understand their thought process, how they go about doing this stuff. It's quite inspiring. And especially for my field, front end engineering, Twitter is a great medium, and it's kind of the melting pot of many developers across the globe. I follow some really top developers, observe their conversations around tech, understand few points from them. You really have to expose yourself to all these amazing people and things which they do around the different corners of the world to actually understand the big picture of various technologies, what they do. Sometimes you can also pick some solutions which they did. Pretty much, if you see in any software industry or any company, they aren't really solving. a problem which has never been ever come across in any other industry. That probably 90% of the problems are similar across companies. So just sharing ideas between different companies can be very helpful. So learning from others is another key trait which can help. And in pursuit of this, one thing which personally helped me a lot is just being involved in the open source community. So uh, open source community, the really amazing thing about open source community is that there are some really awe-inspiring developers out there, and they do code, push out code for free, and some of them do it apart from their actual day job. So they are really passionate about it. They are always open to communicating with you, helping you out if you need me. And there's ideas poured in from there are various projects which are being worked on from people from different companies. So the best ideas win, and you learn a lot from them. Uh, so that's one thing which I got involved in the last a year and a half. Initially, it started out as something very basic. I think my first experience was just I wanted to learn JavaScript on a very deep level, and I was reading through this book by Kyle Simpson called "You Don't Know JS," and he had his entire book open sourced out there on GitHub. So I was just reading through this code, and I had a few questions. I just pinged him on Twitter, and I was able to get replies right away. So that was quite inspiring. And then uh, started to contribute more by adding a repository of JavaScript samples and code, which I found very useful for me to learn. And later on, it became useful to a lot more people. So at some point, it was trending on GitHub. It has around 2,000 plus stars, and it's nothing too complex if you think about it. It's not like I created my own library, but the main thing was there are many more people and developers around the world who are in the same phase as you are. So learning from the open source and sharing can be really helpful. So that's one thing. And there's a lot of avenues which you can pick and choose for you to find these passionate developers or learn and interact with them. GitHub obviously is the most famous place for people to push code into the open source. And then Twitter, surprisingly, there's a lot of things which goes on in Twitter, but if you observe in certain industries, especially in front-end world, there's a lot of people who share a lot of great ideas. So I follow my Twitter feeds. I follow only developers basically, and then whenever I'm just bored, I just go through their feeds and I learn a lot from that. And then Stack Overflow is one more place, and there's dev channels, especially if you are very invested on one specific technology and you have any questions. There are a lot of IRCs and dev channels on Slack or Discord where you can go hang out with programmers, ask your questions. Attending conferences is another uh, great way to meet and interact with people. And then Medium is the way by which people start to blog these days. So that's been very helpful. Blogging is basically developer currency. I had this question. I used to ask this question like, "Hey, is this really worth sharing?" It's like I learned it from someone else. Is it worth sharing? But that's not really the case in the sense that if you learn something which you found valuable, there's probably more people who found it valuable. So feel free to share whatever you learned through blogging, or blogging is basically developer currency. It helps a lot even when you are applying for jobs and everything. Pretty much before even you get into the interview, the interviewer has a good idea about what you are. Okay, this guy knows about JavaScript, he knows about C++, he's written all these blog articles. So they have a good positive mind frame about who you are and what you've done. So blogging is one more thing which, irrespective of what you learn and everything, it helps with your job, getting your job prospects as well. And then YouTube, podcasts, attending hackathons, and going to developer meetups. They're all few more ways by which you can actually get to meet different people and learn from them. Okay, so these are all things which can actually help you to become better. But how about in a project, and how do you actually succeed? So you need to, one of the key things is to master skills that maximize your impact. So basically, uh, in order to maximize master skills that maximize impact, you need to ask a bunch of questions like what problem should I focus my energy on to maximize value for users? How can prioritization? So I'll just classify it into a few different points and we'll talk more about it. The first thing is to be a team player. So how do you, there is this notion of being a 10x engineer. What this means is like you are 10 times as good as a normal engineer, but in technical skills. But in general, what I've noticed in the industry is like no matter how much smart you are as an engineer, uh, there is only, in order to do anything meaningful beyond a certain point of time, it requires more than one person. That's why we have companies, and there are some rockstar coders who can create their own companies, but still, in order to build something like Google or Facebook or big things, it requires more than one person. So, in order to actually be someone of really great value, or in order to be a 10x engineer, you don't necessarily need to be 10 times as technically capable as a normal engineer. Just making sure that you help 10 other engineers to be twice as good. So, like sharing your knowledge or helping them out when they are stuck somewhere. So, these are all some things by which you can maximize your impact. So, that's basically being a team player. So, that can help a lot. The next thing is to communicate effectively. So, communication, it's again, as programmers, we are all pretty bad at it, I would say. But again, it helps having um, the combination of excellent communication, of being able to communicate effectively across teams as well as developer skills. It helps a lot to go a long way. Just bridging the gap between business, non-technical folks versus the technical folks is a very key skill to have in your arsenal. So much of inefficiency in engineering happens because communication breaks down, whether it's between customer and support and product management, or even between two engineers. So the more you can do to ensure reliable and frictionless channels for conveying information, the more likely your engineering efforts will actually succeed. So that's again one more place where you can have a huge impact on. And one more thing is we have a lot of things which we can do when in our jobs. So being able to prioritize. So prioritize ruthlessly, rigorously prioritize high leverage projects. We can choose what to work on uh, for a variety of reasons. Maybe sometimes there's something urgent and it seems interesting, so you want to work on it, or it seems interesting, or sometimes you're just tired and you just want to pick a mindless task. If you choose your work based on leverage, the expected impact per time invested, you can drastically increase your overall impact. This might not really always be the case, like where you will get to choose all these high impact projects, but as you start to build credibility, as when you get a chance to work on a high impact project, feel free to grab it and then just work on it. That'll have something which will have impact on your business. Like say for example, building an ads component on a page might not be the most fun thing to do, but it's probably what brings the most revenue for your company. So those are all high impact projects. So it it also teaches you a lot. You can learn a lot from building those high impact projects. And the last point with respect to being someone who can make a high impact is becoming a master debugger. So debugging skills is quite important. I think it's true with irrespective of coding also. Like if someone is a problem solver, every time you help fix something for someone or yourself, you win their trust and become a better team player, thereby maximizing impact beyond just the tasks assigned to you. So this is one way by which you can become a 10x developer, becoming a master debugger, and each bug can teach you something. Every time you find and fix a bug, you need to ask yourself, is there anything in my code I should do differently in order to eliminate bugs like this in future? Is there anything I should be doing to make troubleshooting this kind of bug easier in the future? Developer tooling. So they're all a lot of things which you can take into consideration to become a really good developer. And one thing which can help you to get into that attitude is to, it's kind of a hard thing. Humans in general like to complain a lot, but one thing which can drastically improve your professional and as well as personal life is to stop complaining in general. Instead, just think in your mind like, can I help fix this thing, or is it really important problem for me to help fix? If it's not, and if you really can't make much of a difference, then there's probably no use ranting about it. It just leads to more negative emotions. Uh, so yeah, that's one more thing. Uh, and the fifth point is probably stepping out of your comfort zone. So this is one more key important thing to try out uh, once in a while. Like even this talk is not something which I give on a regular basis, so it's kind of me trying to step out of my comfort zone just to see how I can do it and maybe even add some value to people. Uh, so in order to become, even with development, it's the same thing. In order to become a complete developer, we need to understand how the whole system works, and as the system gets more complex, which means diving into front end code, back end code, understanding how deployment of code happens to production. So sometimes you might feel like you're over in your head, but just a bit, just enough that you can feel the water getting into your nose, but you're not drowning it. But remember, you're not alone. I think that we grow when we are outside our comfort zone. If it's not breaking you down, it's probably not building you up. So try to step out of your comfort zone and try to just ask questions to people and understand how this backend works. Maybe there'll be more people like to talk about themselves, like to talk about what they're doing, their accomplishments. So you can just ping some backend developer. If I'm a front end developer, I'll probably ask backend developer, hey, how does this work? And how is this Java layer working? And what is going on? So just understanding the whole system can make you really a lot valuable. So ask questions, a lot of them. And I had this feeling of whenever sometimes I get some really dumb questions when I'm learning programming and I was holding myself back, but I think it's totally fine to be comfortable with that fact, because everyone, when we learn something new, we have those moments. So get comfortable with not knowing stuff, get comfortable with struggling to understand. It happens for everyone. And anytime when you learn something new, you'll have this feeling of inadequacy. It's basically mentioned in the tweet. So no matter how far you're in your career, it's okay. And as you keep progressing and you learn a lot more, there is one more thing which might probably kick in, which is the imposter syndrome, which uh, you basically know a lot, but still you kind of feel like you're just cheating yourself by thinking you know a lot, or you think people around you know a lot. Get comfortable with the fact that you actually give some credit for you at that point. Think that understand that you actually know quite a bit, but then the reality is more like how you see in the image on the right. It's like you know a bit, but then there are people who know other things. So there's a lot of things to learn from others as well as from you. So uh, go along, share your knowledge, and don't let the imposter syndrome kind of get to you as much. And with the question of actually getting out of the comfort zone, quite often it means taking risks, uh, especially with high impact projects and everything. One anecdote which I can kind of think about is like if you think about how Sundar Pichai, who's the current CEO of Google, uh, how he actually rose in Google, which was established in '98. He joined somewhere in 2004 as a normal product engineer, product manager. He rose because he took a lot of risks, and it was at that point Google was, and it still is the most traffic driving search engine. But at that point, it was relying a lot on their searches from Internet Explorer, which was the only browser at that point. Probably, I'm not sure if Firefox also there, but the main driver of traffic for Google was Internet Explorer, and Google was finding a big threat with Bing, which was being worked on by Microsoft. And as soon as Bing is being completely flushed out, they knew that they would replace Google with Bing, and Google will probably lose 50% of their traffic. There were a lot of questions around, okay, how do we answer this to investors? What if we lose 50% of our traffic? We are going to lose revenue. It's not like they're going to go in loss, but still, it's a huge billions of dollars will be gone. So that's when Sundar, he worked on this project of Google Toolbar. He was working on various projects, small projects. He pushed for his agenda of, we need to create our own browser. It's definitely going to help us in the long run. We can have apps. We can give better results for search. And he really pushed forward with Google Chrome, which is, as you know, it's like the de facto browser these days. But he got a lot of pushback, but still he kind of pushed. So be brave and take risks. And once Google Chrome succeeded, it slowly led to the Chrome OS, and then now there is unification of Android and OS. So you can see how he created a huge impact by taking a brave risk at that point, and then slowly he moved up the ladder, and now he's the CEO. So feel free to always. It's okay to fail, but we need to take risks, and at some point when we are believe firmly that that's the right thing to do, so that can definitely help. Um, and one more very important thing which I have learned from people around me is uh, empathy and kindness in software engineering. So quite often the human aspect of it gets bit let out in the programming world. It's like people who code, they talk to machines, but there is this human aspect of you interacting with non-technical folks or even technical folks. So empathy is a key skill which we need to acquire, because we are not programming for machines, we are programming for humans. Users or end users are the one who actually use your product. So acquiring the habit of imagining what it is like to use the stuff you develop, that can help you give a bit more perspective to what you're developing. And then how do you learn empathy? It's like a skill, it takes practice by talking to your colleagues, understanding their problems at work, see if you can help them in some way, and seek opportunities maybe to meet your end users who work on your product. Ask salespeople to take you along with their calls, if that's allowed. So observe people who use your product. So these are all some ways by which you can actually develop a skill of empathy and kindness towards your users as well as even your colleagues. So be kind. So that's one key skill which can help you a long way in your careers, as well as, at some point, it's I myself feel sometimes, as the novice developers, you struggle a lot, and as humans we are really bad at recalling how painful our experiences were during our initial stages. And later on, when you are in a better stage, we choose to instead remember that we overcame those challenges and expect others to do it as well. So the way we treat beginners say a lot about you. So appreciate others for their kindness and willingness to learn more than their programming skills, and that will go a long way, because at the end of the day, we are working towards a goal together, and we need a team to actually help achieve those goals. So yeah, that's one more thing. And the last point is probably, there is a lot more in life beyond work, and that can help you with your work. So this is basically something which I read from somewhere online. So imagine life is is a game in which you're juggling five balls. The balls are called work, family, health, friends, and integrity, and you're keeping all of them in the air. But one day you finally come to understand that work is a rubber ball. If you drop it, it will bounce back. But other ones, if you drop it, it can be irrevocably shattered. So it's extremely important to like have a good work-life balance, and keeping yourself fit, and uh, taking care of your health, family, friends. They are quite important, and that can help you a lot in your programming skills. I personally took up fitness very seriously last year, and I was working out a lot, did CrossFit and all these things, and I could see that it had a great influence on my uh, profession as well, in the sense that when you work out, you have routines, you develop routines. So every day you go work out, it takes a while, but you develop routines. And the same thing I was doing with my coding skills as well, in the sense that I developed this routine of pushing code to GitHub every day apart from my work. It could be even like a two-line refactor or one-line refactor, but I just wanted to get started with the habit of learning something new every day and pushing code. And I was really amazed with the results which it kind of gave me in the end. uh, so one example is like when I first started working out, I was working out like 5 days in a month, and it was really hard for me to just do those 5 days. And after a period of like 10 months, and I was tracking it in my calendar. So as you can see in the image on the left, it was me just tracking. Did I work out today? What did I do? Was it CrossFit? Was it just me going to gym? Or was it just some cardio? And during the 10th month, I pretty much worked like worked out 26 days out of 30 even. And it was really not as hard as the first 5 days, first month where I did just 5 days. So you get used to it after some point, and it becomes easier. And this had a positive effect on my coding skills as well. So I was coding every day and pushing code every day to GitHub. Uh, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was a burnout or in any case, because some days I would just push some really small piece of code which I learned online or something which I found interesting, but it just get you going on the habit of pushing code every day. So on GitHub, after 1 year, I had a 1 year streak, which basically means I committed code to GitHub every single day for a year. And then I never thought about that my repositories would become quite useful to others or anything. But at the end of a year, I actually had 3,788 stars, and I was trending on GitHub for a week or so. And these are all things which I wouldn't have even imagined if someone told me this is possible a year back. So you will surprise yourself just by getting into a routine. And there are times when you will actually be really down with your coding skills, when you can pick some confidence out of something else that you do. It doesn't need to be working out, it can be some other sport or something. And the same way, there can be some times when you're really down in some sport or music or something which you do passionately, and then it kind of feeds off each other. You feed off accomplishments outside work, and it forms a symbiotic relationship. So staying healthy and fit, it can help. And once you get into a routine, it's probably a piece of cake. I probably shouldn't say cake. Stay away from cake and cookies. Don't even get me started on chocolate. It's so hard for me to just stop it. But yeah, anyways, just keep yourself healthy. Uh, that can help with coding as well. So that's quite true. I'm a example for that, I would say. And beyond a certain point, I was also feeling the burnout because I was coding a lot. So once in a while, it's nice to just take your minds off and do something totally different. That can help you again with work. When you come back, you feel the refreshed mind. So one such thing which can help is just to travel and explore. So many developers work late hours, hardly take time off, and get too stressed. This leads to burnout. And when you're looking on to building a career, it's over many years. So There can be sometimes when you work really hard, but there can be you need to take off some time. So take some time off and do things that are totally unrelated to your work. Uh, yeah, things when you come back, you'll learn new things along the way and come back with a refreshed mind. And this pic was taken in Cinque in Italy. I very recently, maybe a couple of months back, I backpacked solo to Europe. So that was one thing when I was actually taking off after a year and a half of just coding every single day, kind of like that. But it really helped me a lot, I would say. And last but not the least, remember to be happy. I guess do some projects just for fun. Um, Build things for fun. I remember one of the first few programming things. Once I was telling about this fake phase where you get cocky, right? So that during that phase, I was basically like, oh, I think I can do everything, and I actually built some plugins in Chrome for booking movie tickets, for Visa, and yeah, those kind of things. So just do things for fun, just irrespective of whether it adds value to software or industry. If it adds value for you, then that's just do things for fun. So that can help you learn more. So yeah, that's basically it.
So I actually want to congratulate you on developing this really great sense of work-life balance. I actually envy you a little bit when you mentioned being able to, by the 10th month, work out 26 days out of the month is incredibly impressive. I think with with a job in software engineering and just with a desk job in general, I feel, and I find myself doing this too, I will constantly just not move away from my desk, and I go home and I just don't do anything. I have very poor work-life balance in that sense. So being able to kind of take your tips
Yeah,
away
yeah, I
from
guess.
is really great. I mean, just congratulations on developing this really great system for work-life balance. I completely agree with you.
Thank you, thank you. I feel like I've been there. I wouldn't say I was this kind of person maybe 2, 3 years back. I was the same way, like I hardly worked out in the past. Maybe 3 years back, I couldn't run even like 20, 30 meters. That was my fitness. I still looked fit, but I wasn't as fit. But I guess I think it's the first 6 weeks or 7 weeks when it's very hard to get into the routine. After that, it's kind of easy because it becomes your routine or a habit, right? So uh, yeah, I guess that helped me a lot, and I'm glad that it's also helping you. So yeah.
Yeah, it was just very, very impressive to see. Um, so I'm actually going to open the room for any further questions or comments from the audience. We still do have a little bit of time. I have some questions of my own, but we'd love to hear if any of you have any questions. Lucy Pennyman just kind of commented, wow, I've learned so much and really appreciate your perspectives on collaboration and communication. And Lucy, I will second that. Um, Being able to hear about how important it is to be, you know, to be really communicative in the workplace has been extremely helpful. And to be kind as well, and to be, to exercise empathy. I think all of those things are hugely important and sometimes get lost in transition or in the scheme of things with, trying to push out new software or trying to, hurry up and finish this really big project. I think sometimes things like that get
Yes.
pushed aside. So thank you for bringing light to that.
Yeah, sure. That's sort of definitely something which I have noticed. Like most of these things which I have mentioned over here were things which I learned from people around me or from the open source community. There has been a push for a lot of things like empathy and kindness within programming, or encouraging women developers to get into the tech industry where the representation is fairly less. A lot of things around those themes, and definitely empathy and kindness is one of it. And I even read an article by Boz, who was the guy who built news feeds on Facebook. So you know how big a feature it is. It's literally gets billions of users are using it, and he was the guy who built the back end, front end, everything initially early on. And then there was a day when his boss just came to him and said, like, "Hey, boss, you need to stop working on this. You need to pick something else." And he was just totally flabbergasted, like, "Why? I built this whole thing. Everything is fine." And then he actually showed him, "Okay, I'm going to tell you what really happened." And then people around you are kind of disappointed with you because it's very hard to work with you, and most of the time it's either you saying you're right or something. Of course, most of the time you're right, but we are building a team around you, and people need to work together too. So he mentioned it in his article about how that was a self-realization. He went back home and thought a lot about it, and he felt that he was doing it the wrong way. And at some point, we need to realize that, especially in the industry, it's a lot more than just us being right, because it's a teamwork, and definitely those things, kindness and empathy, help a long way uh, in moving up the ladder as well.
Yeah, that's really great. And we have a question from Jesse H. and who wants to know, how can you tell before you start working there if a company can offer the right environment for you to be successful? Great question.
Yeah, sure. I think even during the it's even during the interviewing phase, I guess when it's not us and it's not them usually just interviewing us. We are also interviewing them in a way, so we can get a lot of cues out of the company culture, how it is, just by reading online and other places. But other than that, just interacting with the team and understanding. Uh, if you feel confident about your skills, also trying to pitch in and tell them like, hey, these are all some things which I really don't know, but I'm really interested in learning. So how they receive those kind of things, or are they more inclusive of such a thing, or are they saying like, yeah, of course, even we don't know many of these things, everyone is working on this together. Just getting to know the feel of how teams are operating. Do they give you that enough freedom to actually learn something if you do not know, or are they looking for more people of, there are some companies which probably just want to get, if you're like contracting or something, they are looking for candidates who can get the job done. So that's basically it, right? So there are some companies which are probably looking for hiring engineers on the long term. They might not even know the technology which they are working on, but they are probably investing on you in the future, in the sense that this guy is probably smart enough or this girl is smart enough. So I think he has the right skills to learn anything in future. So probably just interacting with the team, and uh, even setting expectations for yourself, like, hey, these are all things which I'm probably strong with, but I am also interested in learning all these things. How is it like the culture? How is the culture like? Are there some opportunities for us to learn few things and grow? Do they support uh, going to conferences, meetups, giving tech talks? Just getting the whole picture of the culture of a company can really help. And again, picking the right environment is something you need to do depending on which phase you are. If you feel like you're a seasoned developer, then you might probably look for hard problems. Does this company offer hard problems, extremely high level problems, like at scale, how things work? If you're a novice developer, you might, and you feel like you're still getting started, maybe uh, how do you how do you actually go to a company where they are actually helping you out, and do they have mentors? So knowing all these things can actually help. Yep.
Great. And it looks like we have another question from Rebecca. Can you describe where you were and what you were doing when you had your aha moment?
It was really not like a eureka kind of moment, to be honest. But I would say most of the time it is just, for me, in my case, I would say initially in my career, I built a lot of things without, like, I just learned things which were essential just for doing a task, and then I would do it, and then I would get back to it when I get some other task. But then, maybe a couple of years into my career, I took some time to really understand the basics, and even to the compiler level of how this language works and what is going on. So at that moment is when I was reading this book. Like I said, I mostly work with JavaScript, and when I was reading this book by Kyle Simpson called "You Don't Know JS," he had explained it in such a uh, great manner, explaining, oh, this is what happens with closures, or this is how it works, this is how the compiler executes. So those were the times when I was finally getting it, like, oh, this is awesome. Okay, finally I get it. So finally, anytime when I have any future questions about this concept, I can just go through these steps to understand how it works. The same way, just again, one more thing which helped me to get to this aha moment was just being following developers and following people on Twitter, especially, and understanding, oh, okay, for this closure thing, probably I need to look into this repo. And again, few other aha moments is um, mostly again in open source world. I was initially really scared because I was feeling that maybe there are all these really rockstar developers. What am I going to contribute over here? But every single contribution is quite important. Like, it could be a small bug, it could be fixing documentation, it could be even explaining something to folks, it could be raising an issue. So it starts off there, but then slowly you build a repository for yourself. Things just escalate quickly. And during those moments, you have aha moments, not reading your code, but you kind of get it like, okay, it's not really just writing complex code. It's a lot more than that. So there's a lot more value you can add. And in programming, you have, and sometimes when I see people debug problems, I get these aha moments when I understand, oh, this is the right way to do it. So it happens quite a lot, and I think it should keep happening. Yeah.
Great. And I actually had a question. You had mentioned about different opportunities to be able to sort of interact and learn, whether it be through meetups or through GitHub. Are there any national organizations or associations that might be nice to kind of connect with or sort of liaise with industry professionals? Anything that you feel might be beneficial for someone looking to get into the field, or maybe even for someone who's already in the field and they're just looking to constantly improve upon their skill set and constantly connect and reach out to people?
Yeah. So on a national level, I think there are like I don't know if there is like organizations. I know there are organizations for women who code, and wherever there is some kind of underrepresentation, there are some organizations to help, like give more representation in the industry. But again, there are some. I think different technologies work in different modes. I've seen, especially in the networking field, they have a lot of communities and they meet up quite often in different places. So they have developer conferences, that's where they meet. But on the web world, since it's already mostly on the browser, they're probably more freely interacting through social media like Twitter or everything. Uh, one great thing about all these reaching out to different people is like we don't really need to join some organization, or it doesn't need to be some formal means of communicating with people. So a lot of these things which I learned from people, I haven't even met them in real life. It's mostly through GitHub or Twitter. And as you start to develop, if you're looking into JavaScript, these are probably few things. If you're looking into some other technology which you want to master, you might, as you start searching around, you'll be able to find few more places. And most of it is, I would say, they all have some channels where they're readily available, in the sense like they have Slack channels or they have Discord channels or IRC channels, chat where developers hang out, and they're all really good developers. So it's a good way to like meet up with these people. And I do know in the Bay Area there are many companies which offer like mentorship programs, and these are all even the university levels. There's a lot of things going on, and few other developers they have AMAs like Ask Me Anything's on their GitHub. So some top developers they have AMA repositories where people from anywhere in the world can just post questions about like, hey, this is something which I really like. I want to improve in my career. Can you help me? And I think pretty much every developer is in open source is quite open to helping others out. And yeah, so mentoring people. So yep, that's what I. I'm not aware of any specific organization. So I'm not so sure if this answers your question.
Yeah, no, it's it's been extremely helpful just to hear your perspective on, from national organizations where there's, you don't have to have a formal way to connect with someone, because
Yeah.
nowadays social media is completely, it's kind of the norm, I guess.
Yeah.
So it looks
If
like we actually have time for maybe one or two more questions if there are any from the audience, from the viewers there. If not, we will continue uh, towards a wrap up. Any more questions? It looks like there aren't. So we're just going to move forward here. So we offer 10 different program, or excuse me, 11 different programs here at Graduate Professional Studies. My apologies, this slide is actually an older slide. User-centered design is one of the slides that, or one of the programs that we offer here. We also do offer an MS in software engineering. So like our other programs, all of our programs here, they're part-time and fully online. And a great benefit to taking our courses is that they're all taught by industry professionals in the field. Uh, like I said, the program is 30 credits. It has 10 courses. And more information is available on our website too. But a really great thing as well is that students can take up to 2 courses before applying to one of our programs. So if you're interested in applying to this or any of our other programs, the admissions deadline for spring is coming up. It's on December 13th. But I definitely encourage any of you out there to reach out to our knowledgeable admissions team. Furthermore, if you're looking to connect with Vasanth today, you can see that he has his Twitter handle there as well as his GitHub information there. So feel free to reach out, and I'll type these in the chat box as well for everyone. And also just make sure to connect with us here at Brandeis GPS through social media. You can stay up to date on special events like today's webinar, on job posting spotlights that we will post on our blog, and also networking opportunities that come up as well. We do have a networking opportunity coming up on December 1st for those that are local to the Boston area. Thursday, December 1st from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Long Wharf Marriott Boston Hotel. We're holding a gig economy panel discussion and networking reception. So I encourage all of you to attend that if you can, if you're local to the Boston area. Furthermore, a recording of this webinar will be made available on our community section on the GPS website within the next few days. All of you attendees will also receive an email with this recording link as well. But if you have any questions regarding GPS, like questions on our program or our course offerings, like I said, I encourage you to reach out to our knowledgeable admissions team. They're here to help you and walk you through the process to signing up for a course and to signing up to apply for one of our programs. So on behalf of everyone here at Brandeis GPS, Vasanth, thank you so much for presenting today. It was a really great perspective on the software engineering industry, so thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity in the first place. And again, I had a totally great time just talking to you guys. And feel free to reach out to me anytime with any questions. Even if it's not my field, I'll try to connect you to the right people. So yeah, it was a great pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you to everyone for attending our webinar this afternoon. Take care.